Welcome and thank you for joining us. Your support means the world. Quick question. Where are you listening from today? Which city? Which country? Drop it below. Now let's dive into today's story. The late autumn sun cast long shadows through the mahogany-trimmed windows of Maurice Kennedy's home office. His fingers tightened around the manila envelope. Eyes fixed on the DNA test results spread across his polished desk. Fifth time reading them. Same result. The numbers and markers stared back at him, clinical and devastating in their simplicity. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 7 times. Maurice glanced at the family photo on his desk. Lillian's practiced smile, Emma's green eyes, James's sandy blonde hair. None of them shared his dark features or the distinctive Kennedy jawline. He dismissed it as genetics being unpredictable until now. "Daddy, dinner's ready." Emma's voice carried from downstairs. Maurice slipped the papers into his desk drawer, careful to lock it. "Coming, sweetheart." The dining room tableau was picture-perfect, just like every night for the past 15 years. Lillian moved around the table, setting down a roast she'd probably ordered from that overpriced organic butcher. Her catering business gave her the perfect excuse to be out at odd hours. "How was your insurance physical?" she asked, serving James an extra portion of potatoes. The boy's appetite had increased lately, another growth spurt approaching. "Routine," Maurice replied, cutting into his meat. Though the blood work was interesting, Lillian's hand paused slightly while pouring water. "Oh, apparently, I'm not a negative anymore." His tone remained conversational, but his eyes caught the slight tremor in her fingers. "That's ridiculous," she laughed too quickly. "Blood types don't change." "Exactly." Jeff, Morris's brother, chose that moment to join them, running a hand through his disheveled hair. 6 months of temporary stay after his divorce had made him too comfortable in their home. "Uncle Jeff!" James brightened immediately. "Can you help me with my science project after dinner?" "Sure thing, champ." Jeff ruffled James's hair as he passed, a gesture too familiar, too paternal. Maurice observed the interaction while maintaining his pleasant expression. Emma beamed at her uncle, the same way she used to smile at Maurice when she was younger. The casual intimacy felt rehearsed now, like actors who'd been practicing their roles. "The Morrison account closed today," Jeff announced, helping himself to dinner. "Biggest deal this quarter." "Congratulations," Lillian smiled warmly. Too warmly. "We should celebrate." Maurice cut another piece of meat, methodically chewing while his mind cataloged the subtle exchanges. The way Jeff's hand brushed Lillian's when she passed the salt. How his children gravitated toward their uncle during family gatherings. The pieces had seemed to fit a horrible puzzle, until the blood test revealed an even darker picture. "I was thinking," Maurice said, dabbing his mouth with a napkin, "about Carlton Moore the other day." Lillian's fork clattered against her plate. Jeff suddenly became very interested in his potatoes. "Your old business partner?" Emma asked. "The one who moved to Europe?" "That's right, sweetheart. He left quite suddenly, didn't he, Jeff?" His brother shifted uncomfortably. "Ancient history, Maurice. Company's doing better without him." Maurice noted Lillian's whitened knuckles around her wine glass. "Perhaps, though some things from the past have a way of surfacing." After dinner, Maurice retreated to his study, leaving the sounds of domestic harmony behind. He powered up his laptop, opening a folder labeled Insurance Documentation. Inside were weeks of surveillance photos, financial records, and travel logs. A message notification blinked on his screen. From B. Alvarado. Subject, Timeline Update. Attachment, DNA_comparison.pdf. Maurice clicked open the attachment, a new piece of evidence in his growing collection. The private investigator had been thorough, connecting dots Maurice hadn't even known existed. The truth was worse than his initial suspicions, but he wouldn't confront them without absolute certainty. Through his window, he could see Jeff in the backyard, helping James with his model rocket. His brother's betrayal stung, but it wasn't the whole story. The DNA results had opened a door to a deeper deception, one that stretched back to the beginning of his marriage. Maurice opened his safe, removing a thick file. Inside were old company photographs, including one from 10 years ago. Carlton Moore is standing between him and Jeff at a corporate retreat, his arm casually draped around Lillian's shoulders. Maurice had thought nothing of it then. Now he saw the careful distance between Carlton and Jeff, the way Lillian leaned slightly toward Carlton rather than her husband. The timeline was beginning to align, pointing toward a conspiracy that had robbed him not just of his marriage, but of the very foundation of his family. His phone buzzed. Another update from Bert Alvarado. Maurice allowed himself a grim smile. Soon, he would have every piece of evidence needed to dismantle the elaborate facade his life had become. But for now, he would continue playing his role, watching his wife and brother perform their parts, unaware that the curtain was about to fall. He could hear Lillian laughing downstairs, probably at something Jeff had said. The sound no longer carried warmth. It was just another note in a symphony of deception. Maurice Kennedy straightened his tie, closed his laptop, and prepared to join the performance. Unlike the others, he knew exactly how this play would end. The downtown skyscrapers cast long shadows across Bert Alvarado's office. Maurice Kennedy sat in a worn leather chair, watching dust motes dance in the late afternoon light. The veteran investigator's workspace reflected his no-nonsense approach. Filing cabinets lined the walls. A police scanner hummed quietly in the corner, and a single-potted cactus adorned his metal desk. Your instincts were right, Mr. Kennedy. Bert pulled files from a weathered briefcase. His calloused hands spread photographs across the desk with practiced precision. But the situation's more complex than initial suspicions suggested. Maurice leaned forward, studying images of Lillian entering various restaurants and hotels over the years. Dates were meticulously stamped in the corners. Walk me through it. First, your brother Jeff. Bert pointed to a timeline he constructed. His affair with your wife started approximately 24 months ago. Their first meeting outside family gatherings was at the River Cafe. He tapped a photo showing Jeff and Lillian in an intimate conversation. But that's not where this story begins. Morris's jaw tightened. Carlton Mora. Exactly. Bert pulled out earlier surveillance photos. Your former business partner maintained several properties under shell companies. One particular apartment in the Georgian district stands out. He slid forward a deed with Carlton's signature. Purchased 8 months before your daughter's conception. The implications churned in Morris's stomach. Show me? Bert arranged a series of photographs chronologically. Lillian entering the Georgian district apartment, Carlton following minutes later. Multiple occasions, spanning years, matching the conception dates of both children. Your brother wasn't even in the state during these periods, Bert explained, highlighting travel records. He was overseeing the Seattle expansion when Emma was conceived. During James's conception, he was handling merger negotiations in Chicago. Maurice studied a photo of Carlton and Lillian at a secluded beach house. Her hand rested possessively on Carlton's chest, her wedding ring clearly visible. The timeline with Carlton began approximately 16 years ago, shortly after your wedding. Bert's weathered face showed a flicker of sympathy. Initially met at business functions, escalated quickly. The apartment purchase suggests premeditation. They maintained the affair until his departure to Europe. And the company funds? Transferred gradually through a network of offshore accounts. Bert produced financial records. Your wife assisted in concealing transactions. Small amounts at first, then larger sums as they grew bolder. The European expansion provided perfect cover. Maurice absorbed the information, his expression hardening. The children's medical records? All handled through a private clinic. Bert extracted more documents. Blood types were deliberately miscoded in official records. Carlton's medical history matches several genetic markers present in both children. A police siren wailed in the distance as Maurice processed the revelations. And Jeff's current involvement? Seems he discovered the truth about Carlton shortly before the embezzlement. Evidence suggests he helped cover the financial trails in exchange for silence. Bert hesitated. The affair with your wife appears to be his attempt at replacement. Replacement, Maurice repeated, the word tasting bitter. Your wife's text messages with Jeff indicate she sought him out after Carlton cut contact. Started with emotional intimacy. Escalated during his divorce proceedings. Bert pulled out phone records. They've been careful, but not careful enough. Maurice stood, walking to the window. Below, people hurried through their ordinary lives. unaware of how quickly foundations could crumble. The children's relationship with Jeff? Orchestrated gradually. Your wife encouraged their attachment, particularly after Carlton's departure. School records show Jeff began attending parent-teacher conferences 6 months ago, using his position as uncle for access. And Carlton's current location? Paris, primarily. Maintains a penthouse in the 16th arrondissement. Bert handed over a final photo, Carlton with a young woman outside a French cafe. His European venture failed spectacularly. Most of the embezzled funds are gone. Maurice turned from the window, his reflection in the glass as rigid as steel. Documentation? All copies are encrypted on this drive. Bert slid a small USB across his desk. Original documents are secured in my safe. Financial records, DNA tests, surveillance photos, phone transcripts. Everything you need. The timeline ends here, Maurice stated, pocketing the drive. No further surveillance necessary. Bert studied his client carefully. Planning your next move? The 15th anniversary dinner is tomorrow night. Le Petit Jardin. Maurice straightened his tie. Jeff helped arrange it, thinking he was orchestrating his moment of triumph. And your wife? She'll find the evening enlightening. Maurice retrieved his coat. Your services have been invaluable, Mr. Alvarado. Mr. Kennedy? Bert's voice stopped him at the door. People in your situation sometimes act rashly. Maurice turned, his smile cold. I'm not most people. I believe in proper timing, thorough preparation, and... He paused. Proportional responses. The door closed softly behind him. Bert Alvarado stared at the space his client had occupied, grateful he wasn't on the receiving end of whatever Maurice Kennedy had planned. Outside, Maurice entered his car, the USB drive heavy in his pocket. Tomorrow night's dinner would proceed exactly as his wife and brother anticipated, until it didn't. The stage was set. Now it was simply a matter of executing the performance with the precision it deserved. He started the engine, mind already mapping out the final details. Some men might crumble under such betrayal. Maurice Kennedy would use it to rebuild something stronger, after he demolished every carefully constructed lie his marriage had become. Le Petit Jardin's crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow across the private dining room. Maurice adjusted his platinum cufflinks, a 10th anniversary gift he now recognized as another piece of calculated deception. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lights sparkled like scattered diamonds against the velvet night. Monsieur Kennedy. The sommelier presented a bottle of 1982 Chateau Lafite Rothschild. Your brother's selection. Shall I proceed? By all means. Maurice noted the vintage's price. Jeff's grandiose gesture with someone else's money, as usual. The door opened, and Lillian entered. Her black designer dress highlighted every curve, diamonds glinting at her throat. New ones, Maurice noticed, not from him. Her smile faltered slightly at his calm scrutiny. The room is beautiful, she breathed, taking in the arrangements. Pink roses, her favorite, cascaded from silver vases. Jeff outdid himself. He's always been attentive to your preferences. Maurice pulled out her chair. Though perhaps not as long as others have been. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. The sommelier poured their wine, explaining its notes and bouquet. Maurice raised his glass. To 15 years of illuminating experiences, Lillian's smile tightened. Maurice, you're acting strange tonight. Am I? I thought I was maintaining our usual standards of performance. He sampled the wine, though perhaps not as convincingly as you've managed all these years. The first course arrived, foie gras with brioche, artfully plated. Lillian toyed with her fork. What's really on your mind? I've been reflecting on family lately. Bloodlines. Inheritance. Maurice cut into the foie gras. Did you know the Kennedy line has maintained its distinctive features for generations? Dark hair, strong jaw, A-negative blood type. Color drained from Lillian's face. Maurice, it's fascinating how genetics work. Or don't work, in some cases. He dabbed his lips. The children's science projects have been enlightening. Blood typing, hereditary traits. They're learning so much about themselves. Please, not tonight. Her voice quavered. But it's perfect timing. Anniversaries should be about honesty, shouldn't they? Morris's tone remained conversational. Speaking of honesty, you had something to share? Lillian straightened, composure returning like a mask sliding into place. Her fingers wrapped around her wine glass, knuckles white. Yes, I've been thinking about our future. Do tell. Jeff and I. She paused, gathering courage. We've been in love for years. The children already see him as their father. They call him Dad when you're not around. Maurice allowed the silence to stretch, watching her squirm. The main course arrived, beef tenderloin for him, sea bass for her. The waiter's movements felt choreographed, part of the evening's careful orchestration. How convenient, Maurice finally said, that they found a replacement father so easily. Though not their first, is it? Lillian's fork clattered against fine china. What? Maurice removed an envelope from his jacket. Before you continue your prepared speech about Jeff's paternal qualities, you might want to review these. He slid the DNA results across the tablecloth. Fascinating reading. Almost as interesting as Carlton's old financial records. The champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor. A server rushed forward with a cloth, but Maurice waved him away. Let it stay broken, he said quietly. It matches everything else about this marriage. You don't understand, Lillian whispered, fingers trembling over the test results. Carlton and I had a long and productive relationship, producing 2 children and several offshore accounts. Maurice cut his tenderloin. Though I suppose Jeff didn't know about the children part when he helped Carlton hide the money. How long have you known? Long enough to ensure every detail is documented. The apartment in the Georgian district, the private clinic visits, the carefully coded medical records. He took another sip of wine. Carlton was thorough, I'll give him that. Though not as thorough as my investigator. Lillian's facade cracked. The children will stay with me? Morris's voice turned to steel. Unless you prefer Carlton's embezzlement charges to include your role in the financial fraud. Those signature forgeries were sloppy, Lillian. You can't. I can. I will. He placed his napkin beside his plate. Jeff's waiting at home, isn't he? Ready to console you after your brave confession? Perhaps you should call him. Share the happy news about Carlton's paternity. Lillian's hands shook as she reached for her phone. Please, Maurice. We could talk about this. We're talking. For the first time in 15 years, we're having an honest conversation. Maurice stood, straightening his jacket. You'll receive the divorce papers tomorrow. I suggest reviewing them with a lawyer. Though not one from my firm, they're all quite aware of the situation. The children are my life, she protested weakly. No, they were your cover story. Just like this marriage. Just like Jeff's devoted uncle act. He placed several $100 bills on the table. Enjoy the rest of your dinner. Consider it a parting gift, rather like the life you've stolen from me. Maurice walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. When you tell Jeff about Carlton, remember, the security cameras in my office caught him helping with those financial transfers 7 years ago. His choice of loyalty was unfortunate. The door closed softly behind him, leaving Lillian alone with shattered glass and shattered lies. In the restaurant's foyer, Maurice nodded to the maitre d'. Send the final bill to my brother's address, he instructed. He arranged everything, after all. Outside, the night air carried a hint of autumn crispness. Maurice loosened his tie, feeling lighter than he had in years. The truth hadn't destroyed him. It had freed him. Now it was time to rebuild, starting with the only honest relationships in his life. The children he'd raised, biology be damned. His phone buzzed. Probably Jeff, realizing their carefully planned evening had gone sideways. Maurice silenced it without looking. Tomorrow would bring chaos, recriminations, desperate negotiations. But tonight, he'd savor the quiet satisfaction of finally holding all the cards in a game he hadn't known he was playing. The valet brought his car, and Maurice drove home through streets emptied by the late hour. In his rearview mirror, Le Petit Jardin's lights grew distant, like the last 15 years fading into memory. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also possibility, and this time, he'd face it with clear eyes and clean hands. The morning light filtered through Le Petit Jardin's windows, harsh against the remnants of last night's celebration. Maurice sat unmoved, watching Lillian's mascara-stained face across the scattered evidence of her betrayal. Carlton Mora. Morris's voice cut through the silence, sliding surveillance photos across the table. Remember him? My old partner who convinced me to invest in his European expansion? The one who disappeared with company funds? Lillian's complexion shifted from white to ashen as she stared at the images. Her perfectly manicured nails dug into the tablecloth. How? 7 years of meticulous investigation. Maurice arranged the photos chronologically. Every meeting, every transaction, every lie carefully documented. Tell me, Lillian, was seducing Carlton part of the original plan, or just a convenient bonus? You don't understand. Her voice cracked. Carlton was charming, persuasive, a better father to my children than me? Morris's laugh held no warmth. Though I suppose that part was biological, it wasn't like that. Lillian's hands trembled as she reached for her water glass. We never meant to get caught. Maurice interrupted. That's why you orchestrated this elaborate confession about Jeff? Trying to control the narrative? The truth spilled from Lillian in ugly fragments. Carlton noticed me at the company Christmas party 15 years ago. You were so focused on the merger. Yes, building the company that funded your affair. How inconsiderate of me. He made me feel alive. Lillian's voice hardened with defiance. While you buried yourself in spreadsheets and quarterly reports, Carlton showed me passion, adventure, and several offshore accounts. Maurice finished. The passion of embezzlement must have been quite thrilling. Lillian's face contorted. You have no idea what it was like being married to your ambition. Carlton promised a future. Maurice extracted more photos. Like the one he's building with that young gallery owner in Paris? Color drained from Lillian's face. What? Did you think he disappeared to Europe for you? Morris's smile was razor-sharp. He abandoned you the moment a prettier opportunity arose. Tell me, was that before or after you started sleeping with my brother? Jeff was different. Lillian's voice turned defensive. He actually cared about maintaining his lifestyle through you. Maurice slid forward bank statements. Those new diamonds? Purchased with company funds Jeff helped himself to. Following Carlton's example, it seems, the children love him. The children love the fantasy you constructed. Morris's voice turned glacial. Just like they loved Carlton before he discarded you. How many father figures do you plan to parade through their lives? Tears streaked Lillian's makeup. I needed someone after Carlton left. When Jeff offered to play house with his brother's leftovers, Maurice interjected. How convenient for everyone. Except the children, of course. They're happy with Jeff. They're confused and manipulated. Morris's knuckles whitened around his glass. Did you ever consider their well-being? Or were they just props in your domestic theater? I'm their mother. Lillian's voice rose hysterically. You can't. Can't what? Protect them from your revolving door of paternal replacements. Maurice stood, his shadow falling across the table. Carlton abandoned them. Jeff manipulated them. And you? You sacrificed their stability for your own gratification. What are you going to do? Fear crept into Lillian's voice. Nothing. Maurice straightened his tie. You've done enough damage yourself. Carlton's crimes, your financial complicity, Jeff's betrayal. It's all documented. The children stay with me. You wouldn't dare. Test me? Morris's smile was lethal. Ask Carlton about testing my resolve. Though you'll have to wait. He's rather occupied with his new family in Paris. Lillian crumpled. Decades of lies disintegrating around her. I love them. All of them. Carlton, Jeff, the children. No, Maurice cut her off. You love the illusions they represented. Carlton was your escape fantasy. Jeff your security blanket. And the children? Bargaining chips in your games. He gathered the photos methodically. You'll receive formal documentation soon. I suggest finding a good lawyer. Though your options might be limited, given the evidence of your financial misconduct. Maurice, please. Goodbye, Lillian. He paused at the door. One last thing. Jeff's waiting at home to console you, isn't he? You might want to mention Carlton's paternity before he makes any more plans about playing daddy. The door closed with finality, leaving Lillian alone with the wreckage of her carefully constructed world. Through the windows, Morning sun illuminated empty champagne glasses and scattered photographs, evidence of a celebration turned execution. Maurice strode through the restaurant, nodding to the maitre d' who had witnessed countless anniversary celebrations. This one, at least, had served its purpose. In his pocket, his phone buzzed incessantly. Likely Jeff, realizing their carefully orchestrated confession had backfired spectacularly. Outside, the city awakened to another ordinary day. But for Maurice Kennedy, the real work was just beginning. Jeff would be next, then Carlton, each player in this tragedy receiving their carefully measured consequences. The morning air tasted of possibility and vindication. Sometimes, Maurice reflected, the truth didn't set you free, it armed you for battle. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Morris's corner office, illuminating the city skyline beyond. He reviewed quarterly reports with methodical precision, waiting. The security desk had already alerted him of Jeff's arrival, storming through the lobby, all righteous fury and wounded pride. Right on schedule, the office door burst open. Jeff's face was mottled red, his typically immaculate suit rumpled from a sleepless night. You had no right to humiliate her like that. Jeff's hands trembled as he slammed them on Morris's desk. Maurice didn't look up from his reports. 15 years of deception, and you're concerned about her humiliation? She was going to tell you everything. Everything. Maurice finally raised his eyes. Like Carlton's paternity? Or just the sanitized version where you play the noble savior? Jeff's swagger faltered. What are you talking about? Let me refresh your memory. Maurice turned his computer monitor around, queuing up security footage from 7 years ago. The timestamp showed 2:14 a.m. Lillian and Carlton in an intimate embrace in the executive corridor. Another clip, Jeff helping Carlton transfer files late at night, their faces illuminated by computer screens. That's Jeff's complexion turned ashen. Damning? Indeed. Maurice leaned back. You knew about Carlton and Lillian. Helped him steal from me while he was sleeping with my wife and raising my supposed children. Carlton threatened to expose my involvement if I didn't help him. Jeff's voice cracked. The European expansion was already failing. He needed a scapegoat? A convenient accomplice? Morris's tone dripped contempt. And Lillian? Was she part of the original bargain, or just a bonus prize after Carlton discarded her? When she came to me, she was broken. Jeff paced, running fingers through disheveled hair. Carlton had abandoned her. The children needed. Spare me your noble intentions. Maurice pulled up more footage. These transfers to your private account suggest a different motivation. $5 million over 2 years? That's quite a consolation prize. The children love me. Jeff's desperation showed. I've been more of a father than... The words died as Morris's fist connected with his jaw, sending him stumbling backward. Maurice straightened his cuff, voice deadly calm. More of a father? You helped their biological father steal from their family, watched him destroy their home, then swooped in to play hero. Morris's contempt was palpable. Some brother you turn out to be. Jeff touched his bleeding lip. Carlton threatened. Everyone apparently. Maurice cut him off. Yet somehow, you're the only one who profited from both betrayals. Carlton's money, my wife, my children. Quite the collection you've amassed. When Lillian turned to me after he left, Jeff's rage deflated. I thought I could make things right by sleeping with my wife and pretending to be a father to another man's children. Morris's laugh was bitter. Brilliant plan. Tell me, did you help Carlton hide assets before he fled to Europe, or was that just Lillian's contribution? Jeff's silence was answer enough. The company's security team found some interesting transactions. Maurice pulled up more documents. Funds routed through shell companies, property deals in the Caribbean, bearer bonds. It's almost impressive if it weren't so predictable. Those records were destroyed. By the same IT team you bribed? Maurice smiled coldly. They're more loyal to their paychecks than your promises. Unlike you, some people understand the value of loyalty. Jeff slumped into a chair. What do you want? Want? I already have everything I need. Maurice stood, walking to the window. The FBI would be very interested in your role in Carlton's fraud. The statute of limitations is quite generous for financial crimes. You wouldn't Test me? Maurice turned, his reflection overlaying the city behind him. You watched another man father my children, helped him steal my money, then tried to replace him in their lives. What exactly do you think I wouldn't do? The children are none of your concern. Morris's voice turned to steel. You'll resign from the company today. I've already instructed HR to prepare your termination papers. You can't. I can. I will. Maurice returned to his desk. You have a choice, Jeff. Resign quietly, move to the West Coast, never contact my family again, or face federal charges for your role in Carlton's schemes. They're my family too. No, they're your victims. And now they're your past. Maurice pressed the intercom. Security will escort you to clear out your office. Any attempt to contact Lillian or the children will trigger an immediate call to the FBI. Jeff stood shakily. Maurice, please. Goodbye, Jeff. Maurice turned back to his reports. Consider yourself lucky. Carlton's fate will be considerably less pleasant. Security appeared at the door. Jeff's shoulders slumped in defeat as he was led away, leaving behind the remnants of his attempted usurpation. Maurice waited until the door closed before allowing himself a moment of contemplation. The brother who had helped raise him, who had stood beside him at his wedding, who had betrayed him at every turn, excised from his life like a tumor. His phone lit up with a message. Carlton Mora had booked a flight to New York, right on schedule. The final player was entering the game, unaware he'd already lost. Maurice straightened his tie, preparing for the next confrontation. Family, he'd learned, was defined not by blood or marriage, but by truth and loyalty. Jeff had chosen his path. Now he would walk it alone. Maurice studied the surveillance feed, displaying Carlton Mora's arrival. His former business partner strode through the lobby with characteristic arrogance. Italian suit, designer briefcase, that same predatory smile that had charmed investors and seduced wives. Mr. Mora insists on seeing you. His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. He claims it's about his children. Send him up. Maurice activated the office's recording system, an addition installed after Carlton's first betrayal. Carlton burst through the door minutes later, cologne announcing his presence before his voice. Maurice, looking prosperous as ever. Carlton. Maurice didn't rise from his desk. European ventures not working out. Cut the small talk. Carlton dropped into a chair, uninvited. You can't keep me from my kids. Your kids? Morris's eyebrow arched. The ones you abandoned 7 years ago? Or do you have a newer set in Paris? Carlton's smile faltered slightly. I've changed. They need their real father. Like you needed the company's expansion funds? Maurice interrupted. Or like Lillian needed your promises of a new life? Ancient history. Carlton waved dismissively. I'm here to make things right. By right, you mean claiming children you haven't seen in 7 years? Maurice pulled out a thick folder. Or should we discuss the real reason for your return? The failed ventures, mounting debts, angry investors? Color drained from Carlton's face. How did you know about the collapse of your Paris operations? Or the Swiss authorities investigating your accounts? Maurice smiled thinly. I've had 7 years to document every aspect of your life, Carlton. Every scheme, every affair, every failure. You're bluffing. Am I? Maurice opened the folder. Let's discuss the Jensen merger funds. Embezzlement, corporate espionage, wire fraud. Shall I continue? The statute of limitations hasn't expired. You have no proof. Your offshore accounts in the Caymans. Maurice extracted bank statements. The shell companies in Luxembourg. The property deals that existed only on paper. Should I call the FBI now? Or would you prefer to hear about the RICO implications first? Carlton's bravado cracked. Those records were destroyed by the same IT team that reports to me? Morris's laugh was cold. They've been documenting your crimes since before you fled to Europe. One call to the FBI, and your children will be visiting their biological father in federal prison. They're mine. Carlton surged forward. DNA proves biology. Morris's voice turned glacial. 7 years of absence proves everything else. Tell me, did you think about them while seducing that gallery owner in Paris? Or were they just convenient pawns in your plan to extort money from me? I need to see them. Carlton's desperation showed. Emma must be 13 now, old enough to understand abandonment. Maurice stood, old enough to question why her biological father chose fraud over family. What do you want? Carlton slumped. Money? I can. Money. Maurice circled his desk. I want you to understand something, Carlton. Those children you claim? They're mine. Not by blood, but by every bedtime story, every scraped knee, every moment you missed chasing wealth and women across Europe. The courts will be very interested in your criminal record. Morris's smile was predatory. How many years for international financial fraud? Add in conspiracy, tax evasion. I believe the minimum sentence is rather substantial. Carlton's facade crumbled completely. Please, they're all I have left. No, they're what you threw away. Maurice pressed a button, and security appeared. You have a choice. Sign away all parental rights, leave the country permanently, or face prosecution. My legal team has the paperwork ready. You can't erase me from their lives. You did that yourself 7 years ago. Maurice nodded to security. Choose wisely, Carlton. Prison orange would clash terribly with your complexion. I'll fight this. Like you fought for them when you fled to Europe? Morris's voice dripped contempt. Or like you fought for Lillian before trading her for a younger model? Carlton stood shakily. They deserve to know their real father. They know their real father. Morris's tone was final. The one who stayed, who built their world while you destroyed it. Biology is an accident, Carlton. Fatherhood is a choice, one you've forfeited long ago. I'll be at the Peninsula Hotel. Carlton moved toward the door. When you're ready to negotiate. There is no negotiation. Maurice turned to the window. The papers will be delivered within the hour. Sign them, or I make the call. It's more mercy than you showed my family. The door closed behind Carlton with a final click. Maurice watched his reflection in the window, seeing not the betrayed husband, but the father his children needed. Strong, unwavering, protective. His phone buzzed. The legal team confirming the documents were ready. 7 years of planning, of quietly gathering evidence while maintaining a perfect facade, had led to this moment. Carlton would sign. The evidence was too damning, the consequences too severe to fight. Maurice straightened his tie, preparing for the final act of this long-running drama. Soon, every player who had conspired to destroy his family would face their reckoning. Not through violence or scandal, but through the precise, devastating application of truth and consequences. The city sprawled below, oblivious to the lives being dismantled in this high-rise office. But for Maurice Kennedy, each piece was falling perfectly into place. Sometimes, he reflected, the best revenge wasn't served cold. It was served with meticulous documentation and irrefutable evidence. Maurice surveyed the conference room, where 3 sets of documents awaited their respective recipients. His legal team had crafted each agreement, leaving no room for future claims or appeals. The door opened first to Carlton, his earlier bravado replaced by the haunted look of a man watching his last options disappear. The papers are ready. Maurice gestured to the first stack. Full termination of parental rights, permanent departure from the country, and complete non-disclosure. In exchange, the FBI remains uninformed about your creative accounting. Carlton's hand trembled as he reached for the pen. I could still fight this. Could you? Maurice slid forward a USB drive. This contains evidence of 23 separate federal crimes. The choice is yours, sign, or I make a call. They're my children. They were your genetic contribution to a life you chose to abandon. Morris's voice hardened. Sign. The scratch of pen on paper echoed through the room. Carlton paused at the final page. I'll never see them again? That was your choice 7 years ago. I'm just making it official. The door opened again as Carlton finished signing. Jeff entered, looking smaller without his usual corporate armor. Your turn. Maurice indicated the second set of documents. Resignation from the company, relocation to the West Coast, no contact with my family. Or would you prefer to explain your role in Carlton's schemes to the authorities? They're my family too, Jeff protested weakly. Family? Morris's laugh was cold. You helped him steal from me, watched him destroy my marriage, then tried to claim his leftovers. That's not family. That's opportunism. Jeff's shoulders slumped as he began signing. I really did care about them. Caring doesn't excuse betrayal. Maurice checked each signature methodically. Your severance will be deposited monthly, contingent on maintaining your distance. The brothers exchanged a final look as Jeff signed the last page. 7 years of secrets, lies, and betrayal condensed into legally binding paragraphs. The Seattle office needs a new manager, Maurice added as Jeff stood. Consider it your exile. Break these terms, and the FBI gets a very interesting file. Lillian arrived last, her designer outfit a poor mask for her desperation. The divorce papers waited, thick with evidence of her complicity. You're being vindictive, she accused, scanning the terms. I'm being generous. Maurice tapped a particular clause. Your involvement in Carlton schemes would interest the SEC sign, and that evidence stays buried. The children will have supervised visits, pending their choice and your behavior. Morris's tone left no room for argument. Your alimony reflects your role in this situation. You can't erase 15 years. You did that yourself. Maurice pushed the pen forward. Every time you met Carlton in that Georgian district apartment. Every time you helped him hide stolen funds. Every time you let Jeff play father to another man's children. Lillian's composure cracked. I needed to destroy our family? Excellent work. Maurice stood. Sign the papers, Lillian. Consider the generous terms a reward for making this efficient. Her signature completed the trifecta of justice. 3 betrayers, 3 agreements, 3 futures irrevocably altered. My legal team will handle any communication going forward. Maurice gathered the documents. I suggest finding an apartment quickly. The movers arrive tomorrow. You've thought of everything, Lillian said bitterly. Someone had to think beyond immediate gratification. Maurice opened the door. The children's possessions stay. Everything else goes. The conference room emptied, leaving Maurice alone with the aftermath of his orchestrated justice. Carlton would be on a plane within hours. Jeff would disappear to Seattle, and Lillian would fade into social obscurity. His phone buzzed, the children's school confirming their updated emergency contacts. The hard part lay ahead, explaining to Emma and James why their world had changed. But Maurice Kennedy had never shied from difficult truths. He placed the signed documents in his briefcase. Sometimes justice wasn't about punishment. It was about cleansing poison from wounds so they could finally heal. Sir? His assistant appeared. The children's school requires a meeting. Schedule it for tomorrow. Maurice straightened his tie. It's time for some honest conversations. The autumn sun painted shadows across the conference room table where 3 lives had been formally dismantled. Maurice allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Not vengeful pleasure, but the quiet certainty of having protected what mattered most. The chapter of betrayal was ending. Now came the delicate task of rebuilding what others had tried to destroy. The evening light cast long shadows through Morris's home study, where photographs of happier times lined mahogany shelves. He adjusted the worn leather chairs, 3 arranged in an intimate triangle, away from his desk. This conversation needed warmth, not authority. Emma and James entered together, their young faces carrying the weight of unspoken questions. At 13, Emma's green eyes held a premature understanding. James, 2 years younger, clutched his sister's hand with unconscious tension. Come sit. Maurice gestured to the chairs. No desk between them, no barriers to truth. Is this about Mom not coming home? Emma's voice wavered slightly. And Uncle Jeff's boxes being gone? James added, his sandy blonde hair falling into his eyes. Maurice studied their faces, Carlton's coloring, Lillian's features, yet somehow uniquely their own. Yes, there are things you need to understand. Are you and Mom getting divorced? Emma's directness, at least, came from him. Yes. Maurice kept his voice steady. The man you knew as Uncle Jeff won't be visiting anymore. And your mother, she made some choices that mean we can't live together as we used to. James shifted uncomfortably. Because she loves Uncle Jeff instead? That's part of it. Maurice leaned forward. But there's more, and you're old enough to hear some truth. About Carlton, Mora? Emma's question froze the air. Morris's eyebrows raised. You remember him? I found old photos. Emma's chin lifted. Mom used to look at them when she thought we weren't around. Is he why everyone's fighting? James asked. Maurice measured his words carefully. Carlton made promises to a lot of people. Promises he broke. Your mother, Uncle Jeff, the company, they all made choices around those promises. Bad choices? James pressed. Very bad ones. Maurice nodded. Choices that hurt our family, our trust. Emma's fingers twisted in her lap. Are you still our dad? The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Maurice moved from his chair, kneeling before them. Listen to me, both of you. His voice carried absolute conviction. I'm the father who raised you, who loves you, and who will always be here for you. Biology doesn't change that unless we let it. But Carlton Mora? Emma trailed off. Is someone who chose to leave. Maurice held their gazes. Being a father isn't about blood. It's about choice. Every bedtime story, every scraped knee, every proud moment. Those were my choices. Our truth. James's eyes welled. Mom said Uncle Jeff could be our new dad. Your mother was wrong. Morris's tone hardened slightly. No one becomes a father by replacing someone else. You already have a father. One who's never left, never will leave. Will we see Mom? Emma asked. Yes, if you want to. Supervised visits at first. Maurice squeezed their hands. Your lives will change, but my love for you won't. Ever. What about the company? James glanced at the office beyond. Uncle Jeff said. Uncle Jeff won't be part of the company anymore. Maurice interrupted gently. Sometimes people we trust make mistakes that can't be fixed. Emma straightened, a ghost of Morris's own determination crossing her face. Is that why Mom's crying all the time now? Your mother is facing consequences she never expected. Maurice chose his words with care. Adults sometimes forget that choices have prices. Like when I cheated on my math test? James offered quietly. Similar, but bigger. Maurice nodded. Much bigger prices for much bigger mistakes. Will we have to move? Emma's practical nature emerged. No, this is our home. Maurice stood. Your rooms, your school, your friends, those stay the same. Some changes we choose, others are chosen for us. But we face them together. James rubbed his eyes. I'm still confused. That's okay. Maurice smiled gently. Confusion is honest. Better than pretending we understand things we don't. Mom pretended a lot, didn't she? Emma's insight cut deep. Yes, Maurice acknowledged. But we don't have to pretend anymore. We can build something real instead. Just us three? James asked. Just us three? Maurice confirmed. Sometimes smaller families are stronger because they're built on truth. Emma stood suddenly, wrapping her arms around Morris's waist. James followed, their group hugged tight with unspoken understanding. Outside, the sun set on their last day of comfortable illusions. But in the warm light of Morris's study, a new foundation was taking shape, one built on honesty rather than deception. Can we have pizza? James mumbled into Morris's shirt. Maurice laughed, the sound genuine for the first time in weeks. Yes, and maybe ice cream. Dad! Emma looked up. Thanks for telling us the truth. The word dad carried new weight now. Chosen rather than assumed, earned rather than granted. Maurice held his children closer. These precious beings he'd raised despite biology's tricks. Always, he promised. No more lies in this family. The evening stretched ahead, full of questions they'd face together. But Maurice Kennedy had never felt more certain of his path. Sometimes truth's bitter medicine yielded the sweetest healing. 1 year later, Morris's expanded corner office commanded an even more impressive view of the city skyline. The morning sun glinted off his newly acquired subsidiary's building across the street. Carlton's failed European venture, purchased for pennies on the dollar and transformed into a profitable division. His tablet displayed the quarterly reports. Revenue up 40% since excising Carlton's toxic influence and Jeff's inefficient management. The forensic accounting team, led by Tiffany Fleming, had untangled every fraudulent thread, strengthening the company's foundation. Mr. Kennedy? His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Miss Fleming's here with the final audit reports." Tiffany entered, her professional demeanor softened by a quiet confidence. The past year of working together had revealed a sharp mind behind her methodical approach. "The last of Carlton's hidden accounts is cleared," she announced, spreading documents across his desk. Amazing how many shells he created in the Caymans. Hiding money was always his specialty. Maurice reviewed the findings. Though apparently not hiding well enough, his new venture in Dubai is already failing. Tiffany's lips curved slightly. Seems some anonymous source warned potential investors about his history. Imagine that. Morris's expression remained neutral, but satisfaction flickered in his eyes. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Dad, can you help with my science project?" The real dad, not those other guys. "Good news?" Tiffany noticed his smile. "The best kind?" He showed her the message. "Emma's presenting at the school science fair tomorrow. She's quite the researcher." Tiffany gathered her papers. "James mentioned she's planning to study forensic science in college. Following your example, I think." Maurice stood walking to the window. They've both grown this year. The city stretched below, unconcerned with personal transformations. But in Morris's world, every change marked victory over deception. His tablet chimed with an update. Lillian's latest alimony appeal denied. She'd moved to a modest apartment across town, her social standing shattered by revelations of her role in Carlton's schemes. Her supervised visits with the children had dwindled as Emma and James chose activities over awkward conversations. Jeff's monthly reports from Seattle showed declining sales, but strict adherence to the separation agreement. Exile suited him, a comfortable prison of his own making. The children's trust funds are secured, Tiffany noted, reviewing additional documents. Carlton can't touch them, even if he returns. He won't. Morris's certainty was absolute. His new family in Dubai provides adequate distraction. Speaking of family, Tiffany hesitated. The children mentioned wanted to try that new Italian restaurant. Perhaps. Maurice turned from the window, studying her unspoken invitation. Their professional relationship had evolved over months of late nights and shared victories. She'd attended James's baseball games, helped Emma with math homework, earned their trust through steady presence rather than desperate manipulation. "Perhaps we should test their culinary instincts," he agreed. 7 o'clock? Tiffany's smile reached her eyes. "I'll bring the forensic analysis of their menu pricing." Her subtle humor, so different from Lillian's calculated charm, drew an answering smile. She gathered her files, pausing at the door. "Maurice? The children are lucky to have you." After she left, Maurice reviewed the company's expansion plans. The Kennedy name now stood for integrity, strength rebuilt from betrayal's ashes. His phone buzzed again. James sharing a video of his baseball practice. "Looking good, buddy," he texted back. "Save some home runs for Saturday's game." The afternoon sun cast different shadows now, highlighting future possibilities rather than past deceptions. Maurice Kennedy had transformed betrayal's bitter harvest into something stronger. A family chosen rather than assumed, love earned through honesty rather than obligation. His office door opened to Emma racing in, backpack bouncing. "Dad, I figured out the chemical reaction for my project." "Show me." Maurice cleared space on his desk, watching his daughter spread out her notes with familiar determination. Sometimes life's cruelest revelations led to unexpected gifts. The DNA test that should have shattered his world had instead freed him to build a better one. As Emma explained her experiment, her enthusiasm pure and untainted by past shadows, Maurice realized that truth's painful medicine had yielded the sweetest cure. The father he'd chosen to be had proven stronger than any biological claim. His phone buzzed with a dinner confirmation from Tiffany, while James texted another baseball video. Outside, the city moved in its eternal rhythm, indifferent to personal victories. But in Maurice Kennedy's world, each moment marked another step away from deception's shadow, toward a future built on foundations no betrayal could shake. The truth about his children's paternity could have broken him. Instead, it had made him stronger, wiser, and paradoxically, a better father than ever before. The evening stretched ahead, filled with homework, dinner plans, and the quiet joy of honest connections. Sometimes the family you chose, built through truth and steadfast love, proved stronger than any accident of biology or marriage certificate's promise. Maurice gathered his coat, ready to leave the office's triumph for home's simpler pleasures. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he'd face them as he'd faced every obstacle, with unwavering strength and the conviction that truth, however painful, always illuminated the surest path forward. The Kennedy Tower's new spire pierced Manhattan's skyline, its 60 stories of glass and steel a testament to triumph over treachery. Maurice Kennedy stood at his penthouse office window, a familiar position that now commanded a view worthy of his journey. "Dad!" Emma's voice preceded her entrance. At 18, she'd grown into a poised young woman, her pre-law ambitions shaped by watching justice unfold in her own family. "I got in. Harvard Law offered early admission." Maurice turned, pride warming his features. The years had added distinguished silver to his temples, but hadn't dimmed his sharp gaze. "Never doubted you, for a moment." James, 16, and sporting his varsity baseball jacket, followed his sister. "She's been insufferable since the letter arrived." His teasing tone carried the easy confidence of a teenager secure in his family's love. "You weren't much better when you made starting pitcher," Emma shot back. Maurice observed their banter, savoring these moments that proved biology meant nothing compared to years of dedicated parenting. His phone buzzed. Tiffany, now his wife of 2 years, reminding him about dinner reservations. "Speaking of celebrations," he began, but his assistant's voice interrupted through the intercom. "Mr. Kennedy? There's news about Carlton Mora." The siblings fell silent. That name had become a cautionary tale in their household, though its power to hurt had long since faded. "Go ahead," Maurice authorized. Dubai authorities have frozen his assets. The investment scheme collapsed. He's facing extradition. Emma's law student instincts engaged. "Statute of limitations? Different laws in Dubai," Maurice explained. "Different consequences." Reports filled his tablet. Carlton's latest venture had imploded spectacularly. His young Parisian wife had already filed for divorce, taking their infant son to her family's protection. History repeated itself, though this time Carlton's downfall was entirely his own doing. "There's more," his assistant continued. "Ms. Barnes, your former wife. She's requested another modification to the visitation schedule." James stiffened slightly. Their mother's supervised visits had dwindled to occasional awkward lunches. Her attempts to rebuild relationships floundered against years of revealed deception. "Still working at that boutique?" Emma's tone carried carefully measured disinterest. Maurice nodded. The mighty Lillian Barnes, once a social butterfly, now sorted designer consignments for commission. Her involvement in Carlton's original schemes had blacklisted her from her former circles. The modest apartment in Queens was a far cry from her previous lifestyle. "She's dating some insurance salesman," James offered. "Mentioned it at lunch last month." The children's diplomatic handling of their mother showed maturity beyond their years. They'd chosen understanding over anger, limited contact over complete rejection, decisions Maurice had supported without pushing. "Uncle Jeff sent another letter," Emma added carefully. Maurice raised an eyebrow. His brother's Seattle exile had entered its 5th year. Quarterly reports showed mediocre performance, enough to maintain his position but never excel. His attempts at correspondence, initially ignored, now received polite but distant responses. "He's getting married," James explained. "Some local real estate agent. Asked if we'd consider attending." "Your choice," Maurice assured them, maintaining his policy of empowering their decisions about extended family. The door opened again as Tiffany entered, her forensic accountant's precision now tempered by the warmth of family life. Her pregnancy was just beginning to show, a new Kennedy, untainted by past deceptions, growing into their rebuilt world. "Harvard Law?" she asked Emma, having spotted the letter. Emma's enthusiasm bubbled over again. "Early admission. Dad, can we frame it next to your company's fraud prevention awards?" Maurice smiled at the irony. His company's transformation into a beacon of corporate integrity had spawned a consulting division specializing in fraud detection. Carlton's schemes had inadvertently created a new industry standard for financial security. The Anderson merger is complete, Tiffany reported, switching to business mode. Their books are impressively clean. The company had quadrupled in size since excising Carlton's influence. Morris's reputation for ruthless integrity attracted ethical investors, while his personal story of triumph over betrayal had become a quiet legend in business circles. Did you tell them about Dubai? James asked. Carlton's final act, Tiffany mused. Rather poetic. Their phones buzzed simultaneously. The family group chat showing a message from Detective Bert Alvarado, long since retired but still part of their extended circle. His mentorship had inspired Emma's interest in law and justice. Dinner at 7, Maurice reminded everyone. The new Italian place got their licenses approved, the one you bought after Carlton's Dubai partnership tried to launder money through it. Emma's legal mind never rested. Allegedly tried, Tiffany corrected with a wink. The family dispersed to prepare for dinner, leaving Maurice and Tiffany alone in the sunset-painted office. Jeff's wedding invitation, she prompted gently. Their choice, Maurice repeated. The children understand enough to decide for themselves. And Lillian's visitation request? Same answer. Maurice gathered his coat. They're old enough to set their own boundaries. The evening cityscape glittered below, so different from that night at Le Petit Jardin 5 years ago. The restaurant was his now, transformed into a celebrated flagship of his hospitality division. Another piece of poetic justice. His phone displayed a news alert. Carlton's Dubai arrest making headlines. The accompanying photo showed a gray, desperate man, a far cry from the smooth predator who destroyed families for profit. Karma, Tiffany observed, takes excellent financial records. Later that night, after family dinner and shared celebrations, Maurice stood in his home office. Photos lined the walls. Emma's graduation, James's baseball tournaments, his wedding to Tiffany, the children's shared moments of triumph. A new frame waited for Harvard's acceptance letter. His secure email pinged. Jeff's wedding invitation, formal and hesitant. Beside it, Lillian's latest visitation request, her desperation cloaked in legal terminology. In Dubai, Carlton faced the consequences of his unchanged nature. 3 lives bound by betrayal, now serving as footnotes in his family's story of redemption. Emma's voice carried from the living room, explaining legal precedents to her fascinated brother. Tiffany's laugh joined them, the sound of genuine joy replacing old echoes of deception. Maurice Kennedy closed his laptop, turning away from past shadows toward present light. The truth about his children's paternity had been meant to destroy him. Instead, it had forged a family stronger than blood, bonds chosen rather than assumed, love earned through unwavering integrity. The baby's ultrasound image held pride of place on his desk, the next generation of Kennedys, born into truth rather than lies. Outside, the tower bearing his name rose against the night sky, its spire illuminated like a beacon. Sometimes, he reflected, joining his family in the living room, victory wasn't about destroying your enemies. It was about building something so magnificent that their betrayal became irrelevant, their existence reduced to cautionary tales in a greater story of triumph. The DNA test that had revealed such bitter truth had ultimately given him his greatest gift, the chance to choose his family, to build his legacy on foundations of honesty rather than obligation. As James launched into a story about his latest game and Emma outlined her law school plans, Maurice exchanged a knowing smile with Tiffany. Some men let betrayal break them. Others used it to forge something unbreakable. The Kennedy name now stood for that transformation. From victim of deception to master of destiny, from biological accident to chosen family, from bitter truth to sweetest victory. The evening wrapped around them like a promise kept, while somewhere in Dubai, Carlton faced his reckoning. In Queens, Lillian served other women's cast-offs. In Seattle, Jeff prepared for a wedding his family might not attend. But in Maurice Kennedy's home, surrounded by the family he'd chosen and who had chosen him, the past shadows held no power. They were living proof that sometimes life's cruelest revelations led to its greatest gifts, that truth's bitter medicine yielded the sweetest healing. The future stretched before them, bright with possibility and untainted by lies. Maurice Kennedy had not only survived betrayal, he had transformed it into triumph, building a legacy that would outlast any deception. After all, he mused, watching his family's easy interaction, the strongest bonds weren't forged by blood or law, but by choice, truth, and the unwavering determination to build something greater from betrayal's ashes. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.